I mean, it can be with the eyes open or closed, doesn't matter. You can continue meditating. And yeah, so this, I want to bring this topic that is often discussed, and this appears to be the obstacle for peace, or obstacle of awakening, or it's the main seeming enemy, what is called in various traditions, like, it's like the ego, the ego. We'll tackle this topic multiple times, but I just want to just bring some ideas in the hat now. Also, this term ego actually doesn't appear in this Indian, Buddhist, Tibetan philosophies. Actually, the term that appears is called avidya, or it's like a state of ignorance. But the scholars who initially encountered these teachings, they were influenced by the Freudian and all these beginnings of psychology, and then so they like, oh, okay, that's the ego. So they translated this term of ignorance, not of being stupid or dumb, but more like ignorance of the truth or ignorance of reality. So they translated that as the ego, and I guess that's how it made sense to them, and then it continued like that. So my teacher Francis doesn't like to use the word ego, although these are words, so it doesn't matter. The problem with the word, like using the word, then it becomes like a something, and then I mean we imagine that it is like a something, that is something real that needs to be diminished, or needs to be destroyed or killed or dissolved, and it gives it some reality. I like Paul. I think some of it, Paul Hederman. He also, this term ego. Let's say we can use this ego. We can, synonym will be this ignorance of our true nature. I like Paul Hederman was talking about the self, or in some other traditions it's called the lower self, or the small me, or the self with a small s. And I like Paul Hederman. He was also on this idea that it's more like, it's not a self, it's like a selfing. There is selfing or egoing. There's no ego, it's like egoing is an activity. The ego is more like an activity. It's not something that you can pinpoint. It's an activity of ignorating. So selfing is not something distinct. And the same applies to this concept of consciousness. We use consciousness, the self with capital S, awareness, presence. They are all nouns in English. So this gives the feeling that that is also something. But for investigation, we see it is not like a something, it's more like it's a happening. It's a verb. So I found it useful on my path to look at both the ego as well as presence as verbs. So it's more like consciousnessing. It's not something static. It's not an object. Earlier on my path, I was very much on the fourth way, and there actually the progressive path, the idea was that the ignorance is so thick that it's hard to go straight towards our true nature. It's hard, so one embarks upon a gradual process of purification, or gradual process of peeling off false layers, And then on that path, they had great maps of explaining about this ego. And they didn't call it ego, they call it a false personality. False personality, or Ouspensky call it the imaginary picture of oneself. The imaginary picture of oneself. The sense of me that is not the real me, it is imagined sense of me, false personality. Yeah, I like that, the imaginary picture of oneself. Rupert Spira, I like, he uses, so these are all synonyms: false personality, ego, small self. Rupert Spira uses this term, the separate self. Separate self, and sometimes he even makes it even nicer, the seeming separate self, or the illusory separate self. So I'm just going, I'll try more like stay zoomed out, and we can discuss this a little later. Well, the idea is that we come here without this, without, there's no separate self, there's no ego, there's no false personality as we come here, and is just, there's consciousness, and then there is the body, and actually the body is an expression of consciousness, the body is alive, but in a baby here is just pure being, and there's no thoughts, no concepts, and no thoughts, no concepts, no past, no future. Is just pure perceiving, and especially of sensations. There are sensations in the tummy and this and like. So this open, absolute, in the now, without any practice. That's how we are. That's how we came here. And then basically what happens is that due to how it works here, somehow we need to reach the breast, or do this, or then we hit our knee, and then there starts to be about age, I don't know, 1 or 2, some clarity. Oh, there's this body, and this is my body, and somehow that one gets this, and also the adults, they say, oh, Jimmy, such a nice little boy, look, how old are you? Oh, you are like 2 years and 3 months. And so basically there starts to become this gradual, but by age 3 or so, this sense that I am, the child doesn't think about it, but I am the body. I am the body, and this body is me, and I am the body, and I am in here, and everything else is not me. So this already starts this basic separation connected to the operational aspect of life, you know. So the consciousness that perceives through the machine identifies with the machine. So consciousness believes to be the machine, the body, and the functions. In the fourth way, they use this term that's the body mind with the intellect and feelings and the sensation, and all this is the machine, and the consciousness is that, is the owner, operator. So now this is the beginning and the first primary belief that is unavoidable and is necessary for life, that happens, that I am the body. And then what happens later, that there's a constant barrage of education, and especially in the West, it's a lot of intellectual pouring of information, and then the child starts to have more concepts, more and more concepts, and then also the child imitates, basically, like part of survival is like you are seeing how it goes, and we imitate what is in our environment, which is a great ability of consciousness to adapt. So imitating, and then so basically unless it's extremely special conditions, I don't know, to be raised in some kind of divine ashram somewhere where everybody is a sage. um, Basically, we are surrounded by people who are believing to be the body, and we are surrounded by, and also all humanity, usually everybody, even if they are nice people, nice loving parents, the the I, the sense of me is in the ego. The sense of me is in the sense of being a separate mind-made cluster of thoughts and history and the story of me, basically. So the the child now is indoctrinated in now all this stuff, layers after layers, and then now there's process of wounding and process of which is natural, but also the more there is lack of love or abuse or bad things happening, um, the child feels this hurt, and then starts to form these early core beliefs that we already kind of talked about it, the deficiency story, and then the sense of which are it's a story but with identity. It's me unworthy, it's me messed up, me broken, me unsafe. So all this deficiency story, and then um, this start to actually become the in adaptations, hiding, lying, being funny, being starting to be different somehow in order to adapt to the environment. The child becomes slightly different, so we develop some aspects which are not natural. We are imitating them, or we are becoming slightly different. Instead of being open and spontaneous, we are kind of guarded, we don't say anything, or we are very funny, or so some more and more falseness accumulates, and so this becomes the so-called false personality, and all the stories, the victim, and then this sense of personal me can have different shapes, can be, usually it's deflated. Usually it's like I'm less than, there's some problem, I am inferior somehow, self-pity, self-deprecation, um, even if it's buried. In some instances, there is also inflation. I'm better, I'm superior, I know better than you guys, look at me, I'm so special. It's all the same, basically. All the maybe it's less unpleasant for the owner for some time, the inflated sense of the ego, but they are all, it's all false, and it's not what we are. So so it's important, basically, on the progressive path. And I bring this because I'm here. I bring a mixture of all of this stuff. And the progressive path, they were focusing a lot on trying to be more present, to witness, to observe, and then to study. The way to go is to observe one's false personality, observe it, and to know it, to know the core beliefs, the core negative images, to know all the adaptations, the pattern of looking good, speaking about oneself, all the time being afraid, this or that. So to try to study them, bring awareness to them, and know that, hey, this is not who I really am, and so to study what we are not. On the fourth way, there was a lot of study what we are not, and through that study and non-judgmental study, then that diminishes, and it's less active force in our life. It's less the boss. It's more like these false tendencies, false personality. They are like inner characters that that we are observing and trying to catch them and not identify with them. And on the progressive path was that as one does that and works towards other set of unconscious mechanical behaviors like daydreaming, inner judge, self-critic, expressing of negative emotions, blaming, judging others, judging oneself, victim, look at me, unnecessary talk, lying to oneself or others, being over preoccupied of the image that how we are, what others think about me, and trying to be liked and trying not to be judged. So all this, it's still very useful to all of these manifestations. They are like emanations of this false sense of self. It's actions. It's selfing. So on the progressive path, the idea was to start to know all this and to bring awareness to them and to try to resist them when it comes, to try to not. Here, resistance is another way. It's not resisting some sad feeling. It's more like you see this tendency that comes and you're like, you know that this is bullshit. And you know that when you do this, you are most asleep. So you're trying to snap out of it. So that's in the progressive path, was that if you do a lot of this diminishes, and then you are less kind of, it's less heavy, the illusion, and then the ability to be present kind of grows, and then doing this, and then maybe later you are going to go towards the finding out who you are and finding the real I, you know, but first studying the false I and diminishing all these things. So this is, many paths are like that, and that's good. I mean, that needs to be done. Now, what also a big element of what we are doing here, and all, especially all this stuff connected to Rupert or Francis or Scott Kilby or a lot of this non-dual, it's more like on the direct path. And the direct path, which is, it's supposed to be also very much connected to Ramana Maharshi and Nisargadatta Maharaj. And they didn't invent it, so it's ancient, prior to them for thousands of years. So that's considered to be the faster and direct. I mean, the word comes like this, direct, but it's not it's not applicable for everybody. So it needs to be more like a mature or spiritually mature seeker to resonate with this, or somebody who has already done a lot of work in some way is receptive to the direct path. And on the direct path, which is a lot oozing out of what we are doing here, is that, well, let's not worry about all these endless layers of falseness and endless layers of falseness and all these false identity and all this stuff. Let's not worry about it. So we'll go straight for looking into what is, who am I? Who am I? What am I really? So going straight for our true nature through investigation, self-inquiry, and all kind of exercises. So then basically going to the ultimate question and the end goal at the first step. And this is powerful stuff. I got to this direct path after a lot of progressive path, and I had no choice. So, but I can definitely see that it is much more effective, this direct path, then you guys wouldn't be here unless you resonate with that. So it's for you. Yeah, so direct path is going straight for what we really are, and for knowing that and verifying that what we are is this presence of awareness, and then doing some sort of inner investigation about that. Actually, this is not the thoughts, this is not the feeling. The thoughts and feelings come and go. This was on the fourth way too, basically this non-identifying with the content. But instead of focusing so much worrying about thoughts and feelings, being very going straight for what is aware of them, what is aware of them, what is unchanging, and then looking into what's the nature of that. I think we've done last time, and gradually having glimpses that this presence, which is aware right now, is actually is not the body, is aware of the body, is not limited, is changeless. So we start to have more like the impersonal nature of this presence, and realizations about the timeless nature of this presence, and it is not a man, it's not limited, immortality. So we're just going straight for the self. This starts to reveal itself, and then we don't have to spend so much time purifying or trying to get rid of what we are not. We are going straight for what we are, and then obviously all the shit, all the ego now will still be there, but for going straight for what we are, there's some more effortless, spontaneous kind of gradual dissolution of all that. And actually I can attest that it seems to go much faster, because if you keep fighting the ego and it's keep involved with this, and also it's the spiritual ego fighting the false ego, it gets like a clusterfuck. So we still need to deal with this sense of separation on the direct path, the sense of separation, the sense of being limited that appears in the form of, in the mind, as ideas and stuff, but then later in the body, like loneliness, despair, fear, lack. Anyway, so I think I'll stop here with this, but I just wanted to give a little more theoretical background on this. And then I would like to go now into a little bit of guided processing meditation. Yeah.